10 years ago, we were united by tragedy. Today, we are united by hope. Hurricanes Katrina and Rita devastated the Louisiana Gulf Coast in 2005. Through both storms, Citgo Lake Charles was there, providing assistance in the Hurricane Katrina rescue efforts. Then, facing Hurricane Rita as it hit southwest Louisiana a few weeks later. Lake Charles was forever changed by Hurricane Rita. Citgo Lake Charles employees pulled together amid loss, destruction, and chaos after the storm to tackle a monumental task, taking care of each other and the community we call home. Citgo Lake Charles was an integral part of southwest Louisiana's recovery. In the decades since, we've heightened our social responsibility efforts with programs that have improved people's lives in the communities where we operate and beyond. We have redefined our legacy of service. We launched Caring for Our Coast, a series of projects and programs focused on coastal restoration and wetland conservation. The hurricanes that could have destroyed our communities have instead brought us together by hope. What started as a force of nature became a force for change. We are Citgo, and this is our story. Citgo Lake Charles Refinery, in the eye of the forgotten storm. Our story of Hurricane Rita.
It was hard to believe that we could ever come back from this.
We had asked people not to come back immediately because of the destruction that Hurricane Rita had brought to our area.
We had to shut this place down.
Hurricane Rita was a devastating time for all of us.
In late September of 2005, a massive hurricane, a Category 5 storm, swept through the Gulf of Mexico on its way to the Louisiana and Texas coast. Hurricane Rita hit southwest Louisiana on September 24th as a Category 3 storm, forever changing the coast and the community.
Shutting down this refinery due to a major hurricane is a huge deal. We produce thousands of barrels a day of petroleum products, including gasoline, diesel, kerosene, which we use as jet fuel. And to have us down is not only a big impact on this area, but it's a big impact on the nation as a whole.
With the refinery projected to take a direct hit from Hurricane Rita, we had to shut completely down, which was the first time we've ever had to do that.
As we watched the approach of Hurricane Katrina, we knew that we might be needed in the New Orleans area for first responders. And our area did respond with several hundred responders, including Citgo employees.
We discovered how to interact with the government agencies. We understood what was needed, and we also understood what equipment we would need and supplies. We saw we had to be self-contained. It was a while they couldn't even hardly get water to them. So we knew that some of our basic things we take for granted, water, basic food, energy, we're going to have to take into account and supply it ourselves. When
we got back here, we had almost 25,000 evacuees from the New Orleans area sheltered in Lake Charles, both in the Lake Charles Civic Center and the Burton Coliseum, as well as many housed in churches and even private residences. And of course, when Hurricane Rita came along, we had to re-evacuate those people.
We live in a parish where all the public officials work together and try to solve our problems as a unified command, and we did that. Fortunately, we were able to look and see what happened in Katrina. We were there helping them at the time. So we were able, at that point, to come back to Calcasieu as Rita was approaching us and put a plan together and say, hey, look, we know we don't want this to happen. How are we going to prevent that? We started evacuation plans and urged our public, look, if you get out and you do your part, we're going to take care of this parish. And that's what we did. We were able to do that. And we didn't let them back in. We shut the parish down. We didn't let them back in until it was safe for them to return.
My wife said, let's go to Kansas because she has some family that lives up there. We just packed the basics, ourselves, our animals, just basic stuff. We had evacuated so many times for so many different storms, we honestly got tired of hauling everything.
The last time the refinery had been through a hurricane was in the early 50s with Hurricane Audrey. There was nobody left here at the refinery still working that had been through that Hurricane Audrey time frame. The refinery actually ran through Hurricane Audrey, but this time we were having to shut down. Hurricane Katrina had shut down most of the refineries east of us. Rita was projected to go to Corpus Christi, so the refineries west of us had shut down early on, and what Rita did at the very end was made the turn and come in between the two, and the rest of us had to shut down at that time. The entire refinery industry on the Gulf Coast just about was shut down in that few weeks period, and we needed transportation fuels desperately in the Gulf Coast region, and then the whole United States suffered. Some of the decisions were made very easy for us because as other companies started shutting down and leaving the area, our suppliers started leaving us and our inventory started to drop. So we were forced to start slowing down and start shutting down some of our units even days before Hurricane Rita actually got to the coast. One question we had to answer was, how long will it take to shut the plant down? I'd worked in almost every area of this plant over my 26-year career, so I had a pretty good idea that we could do it in about 12 hours if we had to from where we were the day before Hurricane Rita hit. So I told management we could do it, and so we gave it our best shot.
We increased our supplies as we do every year in these types of situations and ensure that we have the normal things like generators and batteries, flashlights, cots, bedding, those sorts of things for all of our employees. However, no one could anticipate the devastation of the area for as long as it was, nor the amount of employees that Citgo was going to have to house upon return to the area.
We're closer to the Gulf here, so we felt that if we divided half our emergency response equipment, brought it up 25, 30 miles to the north, it would give us a little bit more capacity of returning and having equipment safe from any flooding that went on. So we picked the Quincy.
Once the evacuation notice was given, we let all of our non-essential personnel leave at that time, and we went to an emergency staffing to get the unit shut down. We asked those people to stay at our ride-out location in Jena, Louisiana, to come back after the hurricane had passed. There was about 30 of us that spent the night here at the SOC and rode the storm out, and it was a very long night.
It is 1:05 local time. The eye of Rita is coming ashore one parish south of us in Cameron Parish. Here in Calcasieu, it is absolutely the worst we have seen, no doubt about it. Conditions continually going downhill this evening. Winds sustained at about 60 to 65 miles an hour with hurricane force gusts probably up around 80 or 85 miles an hour at the present time. It's kind of scary because you hear things crashing in the dark and you hear all these sounds, but you don't know what is happening around you because it's pitch black in most areas.
The next day was a learn-as-you-go process because this area had taken a direct hit.
We woke up the next morning when we're ready to respond back, and we thought we'd have an easy trip coming back to the refinery, but we found that the entire highway was blocked. Power lines, trees, it was like tornadoes had gone through there. We got chainsaws, we went out there while it was raining and we assisted cutting limbs. We knew we had to get to the medical facility, which was Sulphur to the south, and there was only one road to get there. So we worked on that road and we cut our way all the way to the hospital. We made a path. Once we hit the hospital, of course I got Citgo as my next concern, so we cut our way to Citgo and we arrived back at the refinery, and it was a pretty good get together. We brought our equipment in and we got together with the responders.
We were fortunate when Hurricane Rita came that we had a successful evacuation, so most people really didn't get to see the worst part of Hurricane Rita. Of course, it had been almost 50 years since Hurricane Audrey had hit the area, and we had not had a major hurricane in almost 50 years. Hurricane Rita really devastated our infrastructure in the area. We had been planning for this for years, but it was untried.
I'm the nurse at Citgo Refinery in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I'm responsible for the health and wellness of our employees. Hurricane Rita was a devastating time for all of us. I returned to the refinery and was able to witness some of the problems that we were faced. There was darkness everywhere, there was material everywhere. The employees looked very stunned and shocked. I did set up a first aid station in the Security Operations Center where I could provide support employees had prepared for 3 days. They had medication to last those 3 days, and here we were almost beyond that point. And so it was my responsibility to provide or to seek support for those employees who needed medication. I did contact our company doctor, who was able to get to his office and provide me with some supplies and some medication. We also used West Calcam Hospital Pharmacy to obtain medication for those employees that needed, but still we were lacking some medications. The hospitals were closed, the pharmacies were closed, but I continued to make contact by telephone until I was able to find one pharmacy that was open and could supply some medication for us. One really good thing that occurred was that management at Citgo decided that they would pay for these prescription medication. I did make a trip to Lake Charles to pick up the medication. This is when I really became aware of a lot of devastation that occurred. One thing that I did remember was to travel to Lake Charles in the afternoon, because at night it was dark. There was no street lights, no way that you could hardly find your way traveling. So I did this in the early part of the day.
The team that stayed behind, we had sleeping bags that was issued to us, our own personal sleeping bags. Some of them were on the floor in the bags, but they weren't asleep. They were on their phones, making sure that their loved ones, their families were safe.
We had heard a lot about Houston and New Orleans and the cities around us, but you know, the small towns in between, I guess, kind of fell through the cracks. But we sat there Saturday, and Sunday morning, I told my wife, after receiving a phone call from my dad, that my house was pretty much destroyed. All he would tell me was that I was going to have to rebuild. I made the 12-hour ride back from Kansas, and kind of had to weave through, you know, down power lines everywhere from just east of Dallas, Texas, all the way to Toledo Bend. I finally made it into Hackberry, and it was just, well, I mean, people see the pictures. It was decimated just like every other place around here, anywhere along the coast at that time. And of course, then I had to make the phone call to my wife and explain to her that pretty much everything that we owned was gone. And she said, well, how much of it is left? And I just kept trying to tell her, there's really not much left. It's just not much left at all.
Thankfully, the refinery didn't sustain any structural damage or any major damage to any of our equipment.
So we started bringing employees back and figuring out where they were going to stay. We started assigning people to different trailers here within the facility, different buildings here within the facility.
We knew early on that one of the things that we had to do was take care of our employees and their families. If an employee came and he had to forage for gasoline, food, or keep their house from leaking, that trying to keep their mind on work and stay with us to get the plant started back up was going to be very hard for them to do. So the company put a plan together to help try to take care of the employees' families, put temporary roofs on their house. If they needed gasoline for their for their generators, the company allowed me to give them gasoline to run the generator, so they weren't having to run all over town trying to find gasoline to keep the generators running for their families at home.
At a critical time in our recovery, just a day or two after Hurricane Rita hit, Citgo was able to supply fuel for first responder vehicles free of charge right here at the loading rack on Highway 108.
Citgo allowed me to give fuel to hospitals, volunteer fire departments, law enforcement, people in the community that needed the fuel. I was allowed to give them the fuel.
Well, the Security Operations Center was command central. This was the hub for our management team during and after the storm. Our management team was able to reside in this room and view the monitors and see every unit as they were in the process of starting up.
The Security Operations Center, or SOC, was completed in February of 2005. 7 months before Hurricane Rita. The SOC serves as the focal point for a wide variety of communications. It is designed to withstand disasters, providing a safe haven for ongoing communication throughout any event. It proved to be essential when used during Hurricane Rita.
We had people here that were so amazing in their fields, the experts. Otherwise, we wouldn't have come back. They had to be very good at what they did, and they were.
We had never been 100% down since the plant started up after World War II. Several groups were working together, operations, maintenance, engineering, logistics, all working to figure out which order we were going to restart all these units.
I received a phone call from Citgo basically saying, hey, we need you out here to go to work.
The plan for the startup was finally coming back together. A lot of people was working on that plan. Problem with the plan is you move along with it, you don't count on some problems. So when a problem does develop, you figure a way around that problem, you start up something else in the plant, you solve that problem, you come back to that unit and you start it back up. It's just not a 1, 2, 3 cookie cutter kind of operation.
And it took us a week before we even started getting the first units online. And then there was another 2 to 3 days after that before we were near full capacity. So overall, it was 10 days to get this plant back up and running.
They just provided everything that we needed to live for the next 2 or 3 weeks.
I'm not sure exactly how this happened, quite honestly, because there are so many people that I talk to on the phone all the time. But I ended up getting in touch with a FEMA person, and eventually this contact that we had in FEMA said, it sounds like you guys could use some trailers. And the next thing I know, we had 500 trailers heading our direction. So as those trailers started to arrive, Citgo maintenance employees who set the trailers up, it was overwhelming as they started to arrive. We set them up in the employee parking lot. Of course, we called it Ritaville. And it was a big undertaking. They set them up, they had to set up a whole sewer system. We had to assign employees to trailers depending on the trailer size. We either had 2 or 3 employees assigned to each trailer. It was really amazing. And after the need diminished a little bit for the trailers to be here at our facility, the employees that had significant damage to their home, we were able to reassign some of those trailers and let some of our employees use those trailers at their homes.
She said, just if these right here, and there's no one staying in these at the moment, you'd be more than welcome to any of them. Citgo had basically provided my family and I a place to live for the next, it was 7.5, 8.5 months until we could get our new house set up there in Hackberry.
During Hurricane Rita, it was very traumatic down here. Our employees needed to be paid, and we had no time clocks or anything to verify their time, and they were working such odd hours, long hours, that I worked with corporate in Tulsa at that time, and we managed to pay our employees on their regular payday. In my 58 years of service, I have never encountered anything so dramatic. But Citgo was kind enough to let us borrow money and pay it back, which was very beneficial. It was rewarding to know that Citgo offered this loan program for our employees so they could use this for rebuilding their homes or repairing their homes.
Honestly, when it comes down to it, it's companies like Citgo and the surrounding refineries that took care of their people. We didn't need any outside intervention. We took care of ourselves, we took care of each other, and then they took care of us.
It was the worst of times, but it was also the best of times here. And what I mean by that, it was the worst of times because we took a direct hit. A lot of the area was destroyed. The best of times was how well our employees react to that. We're a can-do group. When it happened, everybody helped each other. We helped our fellow man. And if something needed to be done, there were 3 people standing beside you to get it done. Nobody was doing any complaining. Nobody hears much about Rita. Everybody hears a lot about Katrina. The Rita people It happened. We wished it hadn't, but it did. We got up, we got to work, and we got the place back to normal.
The teamwork lasted the whole time. It never swayed. We came back full force. You never know how amazing your company and the people are until you're caught in situations like this.
I thought we could do it, and we did. We shut the plant down safely, and then we started back up. And in fact, we did so well when we started back up, we were the first refinery in this area to get back online, to get our products back out to market, and I was so proud of our people when we did that.
We were able to get Southwest Louisiana back into operation within about 10 days, which is really nothing short of amazing. You look at other areas that were devastated like Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Andrew in South Florida. It took months, in some cases years, to make the progress that we made here in just a few days.
I'm proud to be a Citgo employee. I'm proud to be a part of that team.
Strengthened by their resiliency, Citgo employees and the residents of Southwest Louisiana continued to rebuild after Hurricane Rita. The area today is thriving. The generosity and teamwork continue. Shortly after Hurricane Rita, Citgo Petroleum Corporation donated $1 million to the Southwest Louisiana Hurricane Rita relief effort. In addition, Citgo made a $5 million donation to SWLA Center for Health Services to expand the center's healthcare services for the uninsured and underserved in the region. Citgo employees raised a record amount for the United Way campaign following the hurricane. In 2014, 9 years after Hurricane Rita, Citgo, in partnership with a coalition to restore coastal Louisiana and Audubon Nature Institute, conducted a wetland restoration project at the Audubon Louisiana Nature Center in New Orleans. Over 600 hours of labor was donated to clear Chinese tallow trees from the center's wetlands. The trees invaded the area following Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, choking out native species. It launched the year-long effort known as Citgo Caring for Our Coast. The effort continued with an event in the fall of 2014 at Holly Beach along the Cameron Parish coast. Citgo employees, friends and family, and residents of Southwest Louisiana planted over 70,000 plugs of dune grass along 5 miles of newly constructed beachfront. The grass will strengthen the coastline by increasing soil retention and enhance wetlands, as well as provide a safe habitat for wildlife. Citgo is proud to maintain one of the top safety and environmental records in our industry. Citgo's Caring for Our Coast program continues to revitalize our coastal communities and wetlands. We remember these life-changing events and celebrate the resilience of Citgo Lake Charles and our community, while looking ahead with hope and the promise of a better future. The Citgo motto of Fueling Good was unmistakable throughout the rebuilding effort after Hurricane Rita. Citgo Lake Charles celebrated 70 years of operations in 2014 and will continue to fuel good things in Southwest Louisiana and around the country.